What's up, guys? So we talk about dating apps all the time on this channel, right? And to celebrate my recent departure from Tinder, that's right, finally left the Tinder, even though I'm still on Bumble, I decided it might be interesting, especially for people who maybe aren't as used to the dating app world and who maybe want to like jump on an app but they're overwhelmed with all the options. You know, nowadays dating apps are like going to your local CVS and picking out shampoo, right? It's like you have a million options and you're just overwhelmed. I think dating apps are the same way. You might not know where to start. Tinder and Bumble are of course popular choices. They're very similar apps, so I thought I would do a breakdown video of the similarities and the differences between these two apps. First off, I'll start off by saying I'm one of those people who appreciates an original brand. Like any of those brands where there's a copycat brand, I typically support the original because I'm not into the whole cheater brand thing. That's what they're called. So like Coca-Cola, if there's Coca-Cola, I will always buy Coca-Cola instead of Pepsi. Uber and Lyft, forever I was not on Lyft because I just don't like that they basically stole Uber's concept for an app and just like tweaked it a little bit. Like to me, that's just lazy. I do nowadays use Lyft because, Uber has disappointed me many times. So suddenly my loyalty has wavered, but generally I prefer an original brand over a copycat. So with Tinder typically like is my jam when it comes to dating apps. Bumble is really a knockoff of Tinder. Really, I would say a significant portion of apps out there are a knockoff of Tinder that really revolutionized the dating app world by gamifying the experience. And by gamifying the experience, what I mean is they turn it into a game that you get on this app and you swipe through profiles, left, right. When it's a match, bing, it tells you you've matched with somebody, you can start a conversation. So you're chasing that like gratification, that high of like, oh, this person's into me too. And then you start a conversation if they actually respond. So Bumble is the same concept as a lot of other apps are too, by the way. But Bumble, I would say, is the most similar one that's actually succeeded. Bumble's whole thing, much like Lyft with Uber, was highlighting or promoting, like their marketing campaign from the beginning was like female empowerment. Like that was their whole thing. With Bumble, if you're a heterosexual couple, the idea is the woman is the proactive one in the dynamic. So like you match on an app, the woman has to reach out first. And she has 24 hours to reach out. If she doesn't reach out, the match disintegrates. And then if she responds, the man has 24 hours to reciprocate. So the whole idea was like the woman has control over the narrative so that it's not another app where like creeps can message you. Now, for me, obviously I'm not a woman, so like, does my opinion even matter for this? I don't know. But I do feel like it's kind of a gimmicky concept because if you're matching with somebody, like you swiped right on their profile, theoretically you shouldn't be attracting a creep anyway because you wanted to swipe on that person, right? So like, I don't know, is it that like threatening, the idea of a man contacting you first on an app if you already expressed interest? I don't know. But whatever, it worked for them. Bumble was really good with branding. And I will say the 24-hour rule thing is cool. Like the 24-hour rule forces you within a day to connect with somebody. And if you or that person flakes, that connection is now no longer possible. Like I like that seriousness, that firmness, so that you're not wasting your time potentially talking to somebody for like days or weeks, which has happened to me, and then you never meet the person. This way, if somebody's like really flaky, you can learn, you get to kind of sift through earlier on. By the way, with Bumble, for gay matches, there's none of that like, even if you're both women or both men, there's no one person has to reach out first. You basically have 24 hours to respond, both parties. So typical situation, nobody thought about the gay experience when creating the app. They were just thinking about what straight people want. What's also cool about Bumble is it prompts you to fill out more info. So like people typically will fill out their height, their belief system. I don't know what else, what other details do they ask? Like stuff like, do you drink alcohol? Like stuff that for some people are deal breakers. So I appreciate that on Bumble, you're prompted to fill that out. Whereas Tinder, a lot of people just leave everything empty. You just have pictures. And whenever I see that, I'm like, oh, that's so lazy. So saying all this, you're probably thinking, well, Bumble is the obvious superior app, right? It's the same concept as Tinder, but with like elevated features, right? So I generally would agree, other than what I mentioned earlier about how like I personally prefer to support an original brand, not like the copycat brand. So that's why I sometimes deviate. It's a dramatic word to refer to dating app experiences, but sometimes I'll go back to Tinder. But the main thing I would say that separates Tinder from Bumble and makes Tinder like have a huge advantage is the sheer user base. Especially as a gay person, Tinder always has new people to swipe through. Like even if you make your way, even if you're in a small town, this has happened to me. Even in Miami, I've gone through the whole lot of everybody's profiles in a, 5-mile radius, let's say. But every day there's new profiles for you to swipe through. With Bumble, depending on where you live, obviously a place like New York City, every day there's gonna be new profiles. But the average place, the average city, the average town, you go through all your matches pretty quickly on Bumble. Again, for straight people, I'm sure it's a very different experience. So Tinder has more options. Why wouldn't you go where there's more options, right? I am personally right now going through a phase where I'm just like overwhelmed. Like I don't even know right now that I'm in the right headspace. Like I'm just kind of exhausted from dating and from silly endless conversations on apps. So I got rid of Tinder. I was getting overwhelmed by just the sheer amount of profiles and the swiping, and an app like Bumble makes it easier to not be obsessive because there just aren't enough people to match with every day. And I think psychologically too, the great effect of that is it makes you take more time to assess profiles instead of just like swiping through, which I think is pretty habitual for a lot of people on Tinder, me included. On Bumble, it's like, I don't know, I feel like I'm more patient and methodical and thoughtful in my analysis. And there used to be this stigma with Tinder and this idea that Bumble has more thoughtful people, that it's like a more serious crowd. I don't know if that's true. I mean, I'm sure it attracts people like me who notice that you're prompted to fill out more details. So maybe more detail-oriented people or people who are more selective might pick Bumble. But generally, I mean, it's the same shit. Like I've seen people who have profiles on Hinge, on Tinder, on Bumble, on Grindr. Like at the end of the day, it's another fucking app to put yourself out there for. But I do think it's interesting how there's all these different apps. They all tend to be pretty similar, especially nowadays. Like I said, most of them have copied the swiping mechanism that Tinder really originated. But they do all have subtle differences. I feel like Fishbowl would be a nice name for an app.